Well, now let's return to our main report tonight. A reminder now of tonight's main news, indeed, the escalating tension in Ukraine. President Obama has joined the tide of international outrage, saying President Putin isn't fooling anyone, whilst here the Foreign Secretary has been urging Ukraine not to rise to Russian provocation. More from our reporter in Washington in a moment. First to Westminster, our political editor, Gary Gibbon. So, Gary, how has Downing Street reacted to all this?
Well, what you got today from the government was speaking at length, not saying too much. Downing Street doesn't want to move any faster than its allies, and its allies are as yet undecided about how fast to move. There's a key meeting tomorrow that William Hague's going to go to in Paris. That was originally meant to foreign ministers coming together to discuss the Lebanon and Syria, but Ukraine has crashed onto that agenda, and it is expected that the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, will be there. A lot of the hope is that there might be some chat at the margins of that meeting in which it can be explored whether Russia is up for any kind of negotiation with Ukraine over the status of Ukraine, something that de-escalates the situation that Crimea has started.
And when it comes to Europe, not everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet.
Well, the other big work going on behind the scenes is officials trying to set up the meeting for Thursday, when the Prime Minister and others are going to meet in Brussels, 28 EU leaders. And there is a division. You've got Germany, Italy too, at the dovish end of the scale, Poland at the hawkish end of the scale in terms of what sort of punishments they want to unveil and whether they want to unveil them at all to Germany. Britain saying that it is comfortably in the middle. And voices coming out of the United States saying, well, they feel that the slowest boat in the convoy, Germany, is moving just a bit too slowly. You get the impression talking to people around London that they're not convinced that Washington is actually that brittle about Germany. They listen to what President Obama says rather maybe than what the Secretary of State, John Kerry, going around Europe says, and they think actually it's the same old Obama. He's not actually being too hawkish. He won't be too unhappy if Europe doesn't actually press any sort of immediate buttons and unveil anything too drastic on Thursday.
Well, from Gary Gibbon in a darkened Downing Street over to the Washington, sun-kissed Washington, where there's a very much stronger line. Our correspondent Inigo Gilmore is there, and President Obama's been talking precisely about this crisis.
Well, in fact, President Obama had not been scheduled to talk about Ukraine today, but he broke away from a budget event to give further comments on the crisis. Perhaps he felt it was important to respond to comments earlier by President Putin in Moscow. And once again, he took a very tough line, insisting that the Russians had violated international law. This is what he said.
There is a strong belief that Russia's action is violating international law. I know President Putin seems to have a different set of lawyers making a different set of interpretations, but I don't think that's fooling anybody. I think everybody recognizes that although Russia has legitimate interests in what happens in a neighboring state, that does not give it the right to use force as a means of exerting influence inside of that state.
Now, talking tough is one thing, but the thread running through the message from the White House is actually of constructive help, not confrontation when it comes to Ukraine. They very much, as you've seen, they've now bringing in a package of measures to give $1 billion in loan guarantees and also help with the upcoming elections. But President Obama is under huge pressure here to do much more. I've just seen one senior Democratic senator on the floor of the House calling for tough sanctions against Russian banks and oil companies. So President Obama is feeling that very much that pressure when it comes to sanctions. He has already indicated that he is prepared to go down that route. We'll have to see if he does.